So last time we were talking about how Etsy group works and how it's basically the Etsy password of groups. Well, there's also a Etsy shadow for groups. It's called Etsy gshadow, and it often goes untalked about. But the things it's capable of are actually pretty insane. So I'm going to cover that in detail in this video. So what Etsy gshadow is very similar to how Etsy Shadow stored the passwords for the users in Etsy Password. Etsy gshadow stores the passwords for the users, well, not the users actually, the groups in Etsy Group. And that might be a bit of a weird concept. How does a group have a password? It's not like you can log into a group. Well, the thing is, you actually can, and I'll demo that later. But first, let's talk about the config file. So again, because it's basically Etsy Shadow, we want the permissions to be 640. We don't want anyone to be able to read this because hypothetically, it's going to include our passwords. So let's go ahead and let's view Etsy gshadow to see what's going on. And we'll see this. It looks like similar to Etsy Group. We have a single line for each group, and we have 4 fields separated by colons. In this case, our 4 fields are the name of the group, then the password of that group, and looking at here, we will see that all of them are blank. They're either exclamation, a bane, or a asterisk, indicating that this group does not have a password and should not be able to log in. So what does it even mean to be able to log into a group? Well, the idea is that if a group had a password, then any user could log into that group if they have that password. And what that means is it would allow them to adopt the permissions of that group. Again, I'll demo this later, but let me keep on going. So we have the group name, the password, then we have the admins for that group. These people are able to manage the group and add users to that group, which is pretty important. And lastly, this users field. This field is honestly pretty useless because it's already listed in Etsy Group. So if it's already listed in Etsy Group, it doesn't need to look at Etsy gshadow to know who the users are. Even if you added additional users here, it's going to first look at Etsy Group, and the system's going to say, oh, you're not in Etsy Group, that means you're not part of that group. So this last field is useless. But as for the rest, pretty useful. So how can we exploit this? First of all, we can add a hash to the password. We can put a password hash in here. And when we do that, then we can use the new group command to log into that group. And like I mentioned, using that new group command will allow you to log into that group and have a session as part of that group, giving you the permissions of that group. So imagine if, for example, sudo had a password. Then any user could log into sudo and effectively be root on the system, which is a no-no. Again, the second field, admins, are the administrators for that group. They can modify the group however they want. If you just do gpassword group name, then you get to set the password for that group. Okay? So let's I want to demo this. Let's say that let's do sudo. Let's do the sudo user, okay? Let's say we have a sudo user, and I'm going to modify this so we can add, let's add Pukey to there. And, okay. So now I'm Pukey, okay? I'm going to try using that gpassword, so let's do gpassword sudo. Oh, I can change the password now. That's awesome. Let me change it to something simple like sudo. Sudo. Okay, so now the password for sudo is sudo. If I go ahead and become root again, Let me add my password. So if I'm root, then I can look at gshadow. And what we see is, oh, now we have a password hash in here. We can log in to that. So to illustrate this, let's just go ahead and create a completely new user like Bill, okay? So completely new user, let me go ahead and switch to Bill. And if we do ID, we see that Bill is pretty useless. He's just part of Bill. He's the Bill user, part of the Bill group, can't do anything. If we try to sudo, for example, sudo vim etc shadow, let's say. Oh, I don't even have a password. Let's go ahead and set a password for Bill. So password Bill, I'm going to make it Bill. Okay. And let's go ahead and there. If I try to su vim etc shadow, what we'll get is, oh shoot, not su, sudo, my bad. Sudo vim etc shadow Bill. I'm not in the sudo's file, I can't do anything. That sucks. But we do know that we have a password for sudo, the sudo group. So let me go ahead and let's log into that group using new group. So as Bill, I can now new group, sudo, and ask for a password. So I'm going to put sudo's password. And now when I do ID, oh my god, I'm part of the sudo group now. This completely new user that had no privileges on the system is now part of sudo, which means I can now run any command as sudo. For example, I can now edit etc shadow. Yeah, I can edit etc shadow. I can create all sorts of shenanigans because I'm now effectively root on the system. And the interesting thing is if I were to look at etc group and I looked at sudo, Bill isn't here. Okay? You can't even tell that this is happening unless you're like monitoring the active processes being run. Because we didn't change etc group's config, we just logged in to that user. This right now, this is a shell just for me being logged into sudo. If I exit, I'm still Bill, I'm just no longer sudo. And if I look at etc group again, nothing changed still. There is no Bill here. So what this means is because I have a password for a group, I can log into that group and do things as that group without anyone knowing, which is honestly insane. And the crazy thing is, no one ever talks about etc gshadow because it's so niche and it's just never used. It doesn't make sense to use this on any system. So yeah, that is pretty crazy. How do we secure this? Just don't use etc gshadow, okay? There's no reason reasonably that you should be using this. So if I look at etc gshadow, what do we want? We want all of the password fields to be not blank, but to be invalid. So for example, you can put a bang in here, or you can put an asterisk, as the rest of these are. So that's one thing. Second, you want this admin field to be blank, okay? Because no one should be an admin over a group. And then for this, you can leave it. Like I said, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't have any effect on the system, so you can get rid of this, or I'm just going to keep it to play it safe. And now when I do that, I can no longer do that crazy exploit. So if I try to do Bill and I try to do new group sudo, let me try authenticating. Nope, permission denied, I can't do it. And so if I do ID, I'm just average Bill now. So that is that. And of course, always the idea of permissions. Just like for etc shadow, if we can read it, then we can crack the hash. If we can modify it, then we can do all sorts of crazy things like add in admin users. And to fix that, again, just chmod it back to what it should be. 640. So with that being said, let's practice our vulnerabilities. For gshadow, we have two ones right here. So let's go ahead and do that. So I want to pick the modules of gshadow pass and gshadow admin. And so if I were to cat, not my config, if I were to cat my current selection, you see I have both of them. So let's just, let me just check something real quick. I want to make sure that this is set. Ooh, okay. Let me fix something first. gshadow. Yeah, this is just a typo here. I'll fix it by the time this video is released. It should say gshadow admin. Okay. Now we're good to go. So let me set up this system. Okay, boom. And if I were to run my checker, boom, we have two vulnerabilities we need to patch. So let's go ahead and let's look at Etsy gshadow now. Unfortunately, I do not have any tools to automate this because this is something I just discovered. So if we look here, we see, uh-oh, password hash, that's bad. Let me go ahead and get rid of that. Okay, and let me put in an asterisk so no one can log in. And while we're at it, I also see we have this admin user, Joseph. Well, let's get rid of that. We don't need any admins for gshadow. And just by doing that, let's check out checker. Oh, awesome, we fixed that. But there's still another one. Always, always, always check your permissions. And we see Etsy gshadow is good. Okay, what's going on here? Okay, sorry about that. I had to fix a typo in the checker, but everything's good now. So when I run checker, we'll see, whoop, we patched both of the vulnerabilities, which is one, Joseph being an admin user, and two, the group having a password for that group. Another thing is we could also do the pick. I just remembered we have that perm gshadow one we could do. So if I do perm gshadow, and let's go ahead and let's set this up. Okay, clear. And if I check, uh-oh, but if I look at Etsy gshadow, you'll see it is 644, which is bad. We want to make that 640. And we will see that after checking it again and running the checker, it's been fixed. And so that is all of the vulnerabilities for Etsy gshadow. It's a bit of a quirky file that people don't usually talk about, but I think it's pretty cool. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.